Okay, so I'm Brianna Simon, and today I'm going to talk to you about total student health of a technical college in rural western Wisconsin. And I want to say thank you to this organization for allowing me to do my research here and for being super helpful throughout the whole journey, I guess you would call it. First, my disclosure statement is that this project was completed in partial fulfillment of the University of Wisconsin River Falls Masters of Health and Wellness Management Program. All information shared in this presentation will be used for educational purposes only and will not be shared without appropriate consent. The organization's name has been redacted to maintain privacy for the organization. The research is approved by the Institutional Review Board at the University of Wisconsin River Falls, and all participants provided informed consent before participating. This is our protocol number. It's H2018 T084 from the University of Wisconsin River Falls. So first you might be wondering why wellness, and a lot of people are shocked. In fact, I was extremely shocked when I learned that 3 lifestyle behaviors account for 75% of all chronic disease. These 3 behaviors are current smoking, physical inactivity, and obesity. And additionally, 75% of all medical spending is on people with chronic disease. And so essentially, if we can reduce the 3 lifestyle behaviors, then we can reduce the prevalence of chronic disease, and we should be able to reduce medical spending in the United States. However, on top of that, and maybe even more important than that, is that healthier people are more efficient, they're more productive citizens, and they're overall just happier people. And so non-traditional students in the United States are the new majority. And 75% of students are actually juggling families, jobs, and school at once. And so I chose to do my research at a small technical college in rural western Wisconsin. In 2018, they had 1,331 students enrolled with an average age of 31 and a median age of 21. And the highest enrolled programs at this organization are the nursing associate's degree and the nursing assistant. And over 50% of their students are part-time, which again is a huge non-traditional student population. And actually, an interesting fact that you'll see right above my head here is that just 25% of students attend full-time residential colleges. So that means about 75% of students are non-traditional students. So why else? Why should the organization care about the total health of their students or their employees or anything like that? Well, number one, you can save on healthcare costs. Because if you have those reduced chronic illnesses, then you're not, paying for the health care for those people. You have increased productivity, so your students are much more productive when they are in the classroom. Reduced absenteeism, which means that they show up more. You don't have as many students missing class. Increased morale, so your students are happy, and when they're in class, they want to be there. And then increased retention rates. And for employers, that's really important, but also for schools, because you want your students to come back, you want them to finish their programs, and you want them to go home and tell their friends and tell their families how much they enjoyed their time there. So when it comes to total student health, I chose to look at the physical health and the mental health. And poor mental health can actually lead to poor physical health. And in a 2018 study, it was found that health and health-related behavior play a significant role in the student's academic performance. Not only that, but also engaging in unhealthy and risky behaviors that are associated with lower grades and attendance issues. So knowing the fact that 75% of the students in the United States are considered non-traditional students, I decided to do a lit review. And I found a lit review online of PsycInfo, which is an online database that's similar to like PubMed or EBSCO. And there's actually only one article in there that was comparing non-traditional students to traditional students. So there's a severe lack of data on non-traditional students. Knowing that in the United States, 75% of the students are non-traditional, but there isn't any research on them. So again, I chose to look at both the physical health and the mental health of these students. And so for physical health, I'm looking at their exercise habits, their eating habits, current tobacco use, current alcohol use, and their body composition. And for mental health, I looked at stress, anxiety, depression, and happiness. So a little bit of background information on that one article that I found that was comparing non-traditional students to traditional students, that the non-traditional students scored significantly higher than traditional students on life stress, anxiety, and depression. And they found that the reason for that is because of these role stressors. Non-traditional students perform so many different roles and wear so many different hats. A lot of them are parents, some of them even grandparents. They have families, they work full-time or part-time jobs. So they're constantly being thrown into all of these different roles that produce even more stress than the average traditional student. In this study, 27% of undergraduates, this study was done in 2015, so the statistics are probably a little bit different today. But this study noted that 27% of undergraduates in the U.S. have dependents, and 39% of undergraduates are full-time employees. So even more than we think are non-traditional students. And again, I just really want to emphasize here the severe lack of information on non-traditional students. Like, we need information on these students. Which brings me to my driving question, and that was to complete an assessment of total campus health for students at a technical college in rural western Wisconsin through the examination of both their physical health and their mental health. So in order to do this, we need to look at behavior change. And so I looked at the theory of planned behavior. And the theory of planned behavior is an expectancy theory that the behavior will occur when A, the individual values the outcome with the behavior, which means that, so let's look at weight loss. So if the individual sees that there is value in weight loss, if they believe that they're going to be healthier, they're going to be happier, they're going to be able to move more, that's what that means. And B, they expect that the outcome will be a result of performing the behavior. So if they believe that eating healthier and exercising will lead to weight loss, will actually get their desired outcome, they are much more likely to complete that behavior. So that's what expectancy theory is. So not only that, but the theory of planned behavior is based on 4 concepts. And these 4 concepts are behavioral intention, attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. Behavioral intention is the perceived likelihood of performing the behavior. So that means, let's use smoking for an example. So that means that if someone believes that they are likely to quit smoking, they're much more likely to actually do it than if someone believes that they're not going to do it, right? That's kind of common sense. Attitude is the personal evaluation of the behavior. So that means if someone thinks that smoking is bad, then they're much more likely to quit smoking than if they think that it's good. The next one is subjective norm. Subjective norm is the beliefs about whether key people in your life approve or disapprove of the behavior. And so what this means is that if your spouse smokes or your mother smokes and they really want you to be a smoker along with them, you are less likely to quit smoking than if your spouse and your mother had lung cancer, or if they're really supportive of your quit plan. And then lastly is perceived behavioral control. And this is how much you believe you have control over the behavior. So if you believe that it's fate, and you believe I was born a smoker, I'm always going to be a smoker, and there's nothing I can do about that, you are least likely to make the change. But if you believe that you have complete control, it is your choice, you go out, you buy the stuff, then you're more likely to be able to make that behavioral change. A 2015 study found that the theory of planned behavior variables of attitude and subjective norm play a significant role in the theory of planned behavior. So they actually proved this theory. But they have different implications and they have different reasons for motivating people. So I used the theory of planned behavior as a backbone to look at these behaviors in the non-traditional students. So again, I looked at current tobacco usage, current alcohol usage, body composition, exercise habits along with the knowledge and confidence of exercise, and eating habits along with their knowledge and confidence of nutrition. And for mental health, I looked at anxiety, depression, stress, and happiness. So here's a very, very, very general scope of work, because obviously research is more than just 3 steps, right? But so when I did my research, found a severe gap in knowledge on traditional students, and it's so important because 75% of our students are non-traditional students, and I found that there wasn't hardly anything on their health. And so that led me to my driving question, and I created an 83 question survey via Survey Hero software. And I was connected with some wonderful people at this organization, and they helped me distribute the survey. And then from there, I did a data analysis using the Survey Hero software. And here I am presenting my research to you. So my hypothesis, based on my previous research and what I had seen on campus, was that smoking cessation, weight loss, and role stressors would be the biggest concern for non-traditional students. So my sample group was 1,331 undergraduate students. But because I did this research during the summer of 2018, there was significantly less students on campus and less that were taking classes. However, faculty members on campus and professors connected me with some students via email, and they were very supportive. And my final sample size was 50, which included 43 females and 7 males. So 85% of respondents were female, 44% were aged 18 to 24, which is in that traditional age range, right? 24% were aged 26 to 35, 20% aged 36 to 45, and 12% were aged 46 to 55. So that leaves us with a total non-traditional student percentage of 56. And this definition was, I calculated this just by using the age of 26 and older. This wasn't by, are you part-time, full-time, do you have family, do you have a job? If it was, I suspect that this number would be much, much higher. So in looking at these students, 20% of them use tobacco, and 7% of the users are concerned about their tobacco usage. Although it's interesting that 96% of respondents agree that it's unhealthy. So that's good because that's their attitude, right? 96% believe that tobacco is unhealthy. So we're on the right track there. However, only 6% report that they would actually reduce their tobacco usage if they had access to a free tobacco cessation program. So according to the theory of planned behavior, that's not good, right? The behavioral intention is not there for tobacco users, not just yet. And when you think about alcohol and college students, typically binge drinking and college students go hand in hand, right? They're like peanut butter and jelly. Parents send their kids off to college and they're worried about binge drinking, so they teach their kids about binge drinking, okay? They're like, plan a safe ride, call me if you need anything, whatever. Alcohol is their main concern. But what was interesting is that I found 53% of the non-traditional students don't use alcohol at all. Like they said they use none, which is crazy, right? That's awesome. And then 25% said that they only use it once per week. And 8% use it twice per week. So those are pretty good statistics for college students. 96% said that they have 0 to 4 drinks when they do use alcohol. Again, binge drinking here, that statistic shows that binge drinking is not a super big issue at this point in time. But what is interesting is that 12% said that they would reduce their alcohol usage if they had access to a program. So even though 4% are concerned, 12% said they would reduce it. So that's something that definitely needs some more digging into, in my opinion, because those numbers don't quite add up for me. For exercise, I defined it as at least 30 minutes of rigorous exercise or 60 minutes of moderate exercise per day. And we asked students, how many days per week do you get this much exercise? And you can see this graph here. I apologize, the pointer doesn't work on the TV. But the highest bar is 0. That's the biggest bar. So students get this amount of exercise 0 days per week. Most students do. But when you add up 0 to 1, it's 40%. 14% get that much 2 days a week. And 16% get that much 3 days per week. And again, we're looking for 5 days per week here, okay? So exercise is a huge issue for non-traditional students. And we could probably lead that back into their role stressors, right? Because they wear so many hats. So I asked students, what kind of exercise do you like? Well, how do you like to exercise? Do you like to go to the gym? Do you like to work out at home? Do you like to work out alone? Well, 46% prefer to exercise outside. 38% prefer to exercise at home. And while 16% prefer to exercise at the gym, which is weird because that's where you would exercise, right? But what's interesting is that 38% like to exercise at home, which is highly accessible, right? Because you go there every night. but we still have a large number of students that aren't exercising. And the most preferred way to work out is alone, with 68% of students preferring to work out alone. And they really like to walk, and they enjoy, and they'd like to lose fat, and they'd like to gain muscle. So then you have to wonder, why don't these people work out, right? And why are they so shy? Why don't they like to work out in public? Well, 30% don't feel comfortable with their knowledge of cardiovascular exercises, so that's like running, jumping, things like that. Pretty common exercises, in my opinion. But 30% don't feel comfortable with their knowledge of them. And 57% don't feel confident working out in a gym with others, while 82% feel confident working out alone. So that tells me that they need an environment where they can feel like they're themselves and they feel confident and they feel like they're not going to get made fun of, right? That's what that tells me. And also, if they had increased knowledge, they would probably feel more confident working out with people. If they knew what they were doing and they knew they were doing things correctly, they would probably feel more confident. So 56% of students said that they would participate in a free on-campus workout, which is a group workout. So even though 86% like to work out alone, 56% said that they would join a group workout. And we asked students, what are the top 2 reasons why you do work out, and what are the top 2 reasons why you don't? Because those are important, right? You want to make sure that you hit all of those nails on the head if you're going to create a program for them. Well, the top 2 reasons are to lose weight and to gain muscle. And the top 2 reasons why they don't are that lack of time and the lack of motivation. Surprise, surprise, role stressors, right? I mean, we probably could have guessed all 4 of those up there, but it's nice to have them confirmed. And we know that they want to lose weight and they want to gain muscle, and that exercise and diet are hand in hand when it comes to losing weight and gaining muscle. So, this top chart that's labeled in purple is the USDA recommended number of servings per day for each food group. And this is the student-reported number of servings per day for each food group. And while the numbers look like they're somewhat okay, right? So the mean here for vegetables is 2.49, and the USDA recommends 2 to 3 cups, right? The standard deviations are huge. So when you have a serving size like when your range is like 0 to 4 and you have a standard deviation of 1.5, that's not good data. Okay, that's bad. So although the numbers look okay, they're really not. That means some students are over here, they're getting nothing or not a lot, and some students are way over here, they're like awesome, right on track, right? But we want everybody to be in that 2.5 range, and we want the standard deviation to be really low. Okay, so while this data in this mean column looks okay, it's not okay. So I asked students, how well do you know your nutritional health? Like on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 means I know absolutely nothing, and 10 means I know everything there is to know, right? They were at a 5.38, which, that's okay, that's in the middle, but I was looking for like a 7 or 8 there. And again, there's a pretty big standard deviation. Not as big as with the serving sizes because our scale is a little bit bigger, but it's almost 2. That's huge. So that means that some students are at a 3.38, which means they know very little, and some students are at that 7 range, which that's pretty good, right? And again, 80% of students said that they wanted to lose weight, while 86% said they wanted to gain muscle. So that means they must be interested in nutritional information because that's how they're going to get there. And we know, as I stated earlier, that poor mental health often leads to poor physical health, right? And we know that stress and anxiety are significantly higher in non-traditional students. And we wanted to confirm this. So I asked them, what is your current stress level? What is your current anxiety level? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Well, the current stress level is 6.26 for a mean, with a standard deviation of about 2. And the current anxiety level is right around 6, with an anxiety level of higher than 2. Or a standard deviation of higher than 2. That's extremely high. Okay, we want the means under 5 and a small deviation. So that means that some students rated their stress levels around an 8. And some students rated their anxiety levels around like an 8, 9. That's huge. That's like students are so stressed out that they can't handle it. Like they're about to break down. Right? Those numbers aren't okay. And we expect this because they have those role stressors and they have anxiety and depression. And that leads to this stress, but there's something that needs to be done about this. And we asked students on a series of questions again on a scale of 1 to 10. Tell me 1 means you strongly disagree and 10 means you strongly agree with the statement. And the one that I'm concerned with here is that I say that their mental health needs work. And the mean is 5, so that's okay, right? But the standard deviation again is 3, so that means that some students are sitting at an 8 and some students are sitting at a 2. So while some students are good, they feel mentally strong, they're happy, they're healthy, a good number of students are also at their breaking point. They're drowning in their stress and their anxiety, right? But what's also awesome about this is that I asked students how many of them were happy, and their happiness levels were generally high. So that's awesome. 38% of students said that they do have depression, and 65% said that they have anxiety. So I asked students, like, how many of you guys are being currently treated, and how many of you think you're candidates? So we want to know, is this something that's chronic, or is this something that's temporary? Well, 30% are currently being treated, and 44% believe that they're candidates for treatment. So that means, especially if you look at like the anxiety, that means that a lot of the students have anxiety, but they understand that their anxiety is temporary and it's not a chronic thing for them because they don't think that they need treatment for it. But what that also means is that 44% of students feel like they need help and they're not getting it. And we know that mental health is so important because that leads to poor physical health. And poor physical health leads to chronic disease, and chronic disease leads to death and medical spending and poor, not being as productive as we can be. We're not your highest self, right? So I realize I spewed a lot of data at you guys. So here's a general summary. The tobacco usage, there was 20% on campus. But based on the theory of planned behavior, their behavioral intention isn't there yet, so they're unlikely to change their habits at this point in time. Alcohol usage wasn't a concern, but I would look more into that data because there was that 12% that said that they would reduce their alcohol usage, even though a significantly smaller number was actually concerned with their usage. Exercise, we need to focus on their lack of time, their lack of motivation, weight loss, muscle gain, and they really like to walk. And you're probably wondering, where is this body composition data throughout this whole presentation, if you remembered that? Well, I threw the data out, and the reason for that is because they were inaccurate and I got a lack of responses there. So a lot of the answers were, I don't know, or maybe 30% fat, question mark, things like that. And I don't want to give bad data, okay? We want the data to be reliable. So I just threw it out completely, and that was an error there. The eating habits, those are scattered across the board with those large standard deviations. Happiness levels generally high, that's awesome. Round of applause for students here, teachers, faculty members. Depression and anxiety and stress, also extremely high. So we gotta do something about that. So, when I make the connection to the theory of planned behavior, like I said earlier, I would cut out smoking. I won't even worry about it at this point because the behavioral intention isn't there. And if you were going to worry about it, we have to change the behavioral intention first before starting some sort of cessation program. The attitudes of all of the physical health and mental health issues, they were all on point. Students generally, and I'm talking like 96%, agreed that those habits were unhealthy. So they agreed that smoking wasn't good and that alcohol usage wasn't good. Subjective norm was not researched, and neither was perceived behavioral control, but that would be an interesting maybe part 2 to the research. So how do we fix these issues, right? How do we start to fix the issues? Well, I'm suggesting that you can implement some sort of exercise class for credits. And if you remember, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know, nursing is huge here. And knowing exercise and being healthy, being a good role model is huge for nurses because that's going to bleed into their patient. So if we can get them exercising and get them feeling mentally and physically healthy, they're going to be more productive nurses, right? They're going to go out into the field and they're going to do better. So if we can somehow introduce an exercise class for credits, I think that'll deal with the motivation issue and the lack of time issue. Because if they take this class instead of some other, I don't know, maybe a fine arts class or something like that, then they're getting credits towards their class time and towards their degree that they don't have to worry about. And they're not going home after school and trying to fit it in. So that'll help with motivation because they're getting credits for it. and that'll help with the lack of time. And in this class, I'm suggesting that we do some sort of high intensity interval training, also known as HIIT. And the reason for that is even though the students enjoy walking, we want to hit as many nails on the head with those 5 areas of concern, right? So we want to work with their lack of time and their lack of motivation, and we want them to gain muscle, and we want them to lose fat, because people are much more likely to continue the behavior when they see results. So if you do a HIIT exercise, you can get a really good workout in 30 to 45 minutes, and you can lose that fat, and you can gain that muscle, versus if you were to walk, you would have to do a lot more walking to get the same results. So although they really enjoy walking, I'm suggesting HIIT, because it's a lesser amount of time. And in this class, we'll teach students, how to properly exercise, how to do a squat properly. And then hopefully that will bleed into their families, and they will become more confident working out in public and around others, because they will know that they're doing it correctly, and they'll have that added confidence. A nutrition education class, because again, especially with nursing students, so important that they can teach their patients about this, right? In an on-campus silent room, and you're probably thinking like, what the heck is that, right? But this is a really cool idea, and actually where I did my undergrad had one of these, and we called it the meditation room. It's a room that is heavily insulated and feng shuied, by the way. But it's just a room that you can go in there and meditate and do yoga or anything. It has nice dimmable lights. There's a speaker in there that you can play some sort of music on, like, relaxing music, not like rock and roll, right? But, and they're not that expensive to put in, but it's a good way to reduce stress throughout the day. Like, students can just go in there and gather their bearings in between classes, or like before their big test, something like that, And then additionally, we need to find a way to focus on the role stressors and stress reduction techniques that are, centered around these role stressors, because that has been a constant theme throughout everything that I've found in my research. In the future, I think it would be really interesting to look at perceived stress based on gender. I found one study that looked at students, not non-traditional students, but traditional students, and they found that perceived gender, or whatever gender you thought you were, played a role in how you dealt with stress. And because I had 43 of my 50 respondents listed as female, that wasn't able to be studied, but that would be something that's really interesting. I'd also like to correct the body composition measurement by having someone maybe on campus that can do it for everyone, so that they don't have to say, 30% question mark. And it would be really interesting to look at the subjective norm and the perceived behavioral control of these health behaviors. So the organizational implications. Again, why should you care, right? These aren't my kids, Well, your students, they're going to have increased productivity, they're going to have higher grades, they're going to have reduced absenteeism, they're going to be happier, they're going to be healthier, and they're going to have an increased retention rate. But not only that, but then maybe these students, because they're more productive, because they get higher grades, and because they showed up to class, and they're happier and healthier, then they're more productive citizens. And then they go out into the world, and maybe they do something amazing. Maybe they come back and they donate. Or maybe they make their mark on the world with your organization's name right behind theirs, right? So maybe, you don't know, because we haven't implemented this yet, but the opportunities are endless here. The health and wellness field implications are that non-traditional student health should focus on increased physical activity and addressing the lack of time and the lack of motivation issues, weight loss and muscle gain, and again, huge is depression, anxiety, and role stressors. And the theoretical implications, so going back to that theory of planned behavior, is that non-traditional student health programs should first discover the behavioral intention and attitudes towards the health behaviors before starting an intervention. So let's go back to that smoking. We said, yes, let's create a tobacco cessation program on campus. Awesome, great idea, everybody's on board. But it doesn't matter if you are all on board if the smokers aren't on board, right? Because the program is really about them. So we need to figure out where they're at and work with their behavioral intention before we create a program. So maybe that can be like step -1 is coming up with the behavioral intention and changing that before starting the program, right? And the worldwide implication is that healthier people lead to the reduction of the 3 lifestyle behaviors that cause chronic disease. Less chronic disease, less medical spending, and we can spend money on things that really, really, really matter. So I'd like to thank the University of Wisconsin River Falls Institutional Review Board, Susan Lockwood at this unnamed organization for all of her help, Dr. Tiffany Akins at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point for her guidance and her feedback, Dr. Jody Shaven at the University of Wisconsin River Falls, and the University of Wisconsin Extension. But not only that, but everybody in this room and everybody here that I've talked to in the hallways and the students that participated and so openly gave their answers, because sometimes it's not easy to reflect on things that you are having trouble with. And also just all the faculty and staff here for promoting my research and really helping me out there, because I could not have gotten the answers that I did without them. Do you guys have any questions at all? Just one at least, come on. None? Okay, then I'm done.